let's go see what brain rot we have from this one.
First of all, who is y'all? I'm not Israeli. I'm not Jewish. I'm simply someone who at one time was for the pro-Palestinian cause as a leftist American. And then
She was for the Palestinian cause because she's a leftist in America.
Actually did the work. I got off TikTok, didn't listen to the influencers that I trusted, and instead decided to read and do nothing but eat, sleep, and breathe this conflict, going all the way back to 622 AD when Islam was created.
Ouch.
And what I found.
Ouch. This is a typical talking point. Let's make this about religion. Let's make this about Islam, right? What does the founding of Islam in 622 have to do with an ethnic cleansing campaign being carried out in 2024? What does it have to do with international law? All the standards that have been set post-World War II, all the institutions that every country has signed on to be party to, the rules of international law, of diplomacy, none of that matters, right? What matters is 622 AD. We must go back to biblical times. And that's when I realized that I was okay. I was okay with the genocide of the Palestinians.
Was that the Arab Muslims, the Islamist, the radical Islamist.
That Islamophobic dog whistle, that racist dog whistle. The radical Islamists. Oh, it's always the radical Islamists. Because it couldn't be Israel, right? There's the radical religion here isn't the one that's under the banner of Judaism carrying out genocide. I mean, they all say the same things. Why don't they get new talking points? As I say to all of them, throw away these talking points. Stop invoking biblical times. Yeah, as soon as she said 622 AD, you're cooked. It's over. You're done. They love going back to 622. They'll cry themselves to sleep if they have to go back to 1947. They're murdering Christians in the Gaza Strip. They're murdering Jews in the Gaza Strip. Has nothing to do with religion, but way to be a liberal brain rot loser. Let's keep going.
You know who the Palestinians actually are, because make no mistake, 99% of Gazans are Arab Muslim. I discovered that they have been trying to annihilate and picking on a minority population, the Jewish people.
Yeah, 99% of Palestinians are Palestinian. Israelis are in the minority.
Since 622 AD, because the Jewish people did not believe that Muhammad was the true prophet.
Everything that she's saying right now is like, I'm trying to go along with it, but it's literally irrelevant, okay? It's literally irrelevant to international law. This is the brain rot, you know? She was pro-Palestine until she started, reading Zionist propaganda? Before she started invoking the Bible? Like, as soon as you start invoking the Bible, you're cooked. It says Islam has spread to over 1.9 billion while the Jewish people just rebounded to pre-Holocaust. Oh, so that's fine. Then they should be able to, do their own Holocaust, is what she's saying. Like, anything to look away from the material reality, am I right? What does this have to do with Islam? You're playing that same game, you know? You're conflating Judaism with Zionism, literally nothing about the Jewish people. You're cooked. Okay, we're talking about the Israeli Zionist Settler Project, which is a political party. It's a political organization. It has nothing to do with religion. It's sort of like saying, well, the Nazis were socialists because they called themselves National Socialists, so they must be socialist. Well, if you look at what they were doing, they had nothing to do with socialism. In fact, that was the first people they cleansed from their society were socialists. But you're doing that, running Israeli D for them is just making it about religion. Because Israel says it's the Jewish people, well, then that's the framework for the whole geopolitical situation happening. It's Judaism versus Islam.
And because they did not accept that, they then became the number one enemy to Islam. And ever since then, they have done nothing but try and wipe the Jewish people off the face of the planet and out of their ancestral homeland.
Okay, well, even if that were true, which it isn't, has nothing to do with Israel versus Palestine. You can go along with this religious narrative and go back thousands of years if you like, but what I know is that since 1967, formally, the entire world community condemns Israel for the crime of aggression, of starting a war with 3 countries, then acquiring territory, occupying that territory that they acquired through war, which is another crime of aggression. So not only preempting a strike against another country and starting a war is a crime of aggression. And remember, all crimes of aggression bear with it the accumulated evil of the whole. What does that mean? Any reprisal against that preemptive strike, any death or destruction that results from the opposition conducting its own attack, that is on the fault of the aggressor still. And in this case, we have the crime of aggression. We have the illegal occupation subsequently, which the entire world agrees right now that, except for obviously Israel and the United States, the entire world agrees that that is a crime against humanity and condemns it as such. Right now you have a country, Israel, that is considered an illegal state by the ICC, is considered an apartheid state by the ICJ. What do you have to say to that? The preemptive strike, the conquering of territory acquired through war, the occupation, then to settle it, to settle the land of the occupied territories. That's also another crime. Israel's just one war crime on top of another war crime on top of another war crime. Let's go back to the Jewish people thing. She's like trying to frame it as Judaism versus Islam. That's the framing of her argument. That's what is justifying Israel's existence, and I'm sure she's going to go into some mental gymnastics about how they have a right to defend themselves because of 622 AD. But remember, we're talking about a nation state, and a political ideology is not the same as a religious identity. A political party is not a religious faith. Okay, we're talking about a political party that has a very particular political goal in mind, a goal of ethnic cleansing, a goal of forced expulsion, and whatever that entails, including genocide. Let's take her framework and let's make an analogy of it, okay? This same person in the 1930s or the 1940s would be saying, you know, the Jews have been starting a war against the Aryans since time immemorial. There's been this conspiracy, they want to kill every Aryan that has ever existed. The Jews just hate the Germans, and they've tried to kill all the Germans throughout history. And this goes back centuries, okay? So the Nazis have a right to defend themselves. I mean, those are the vibes. A religion of 1.9 billion is picking on a religion of 15 million, and you are the victims. Let's decipher all the bullshit, decode this bullshit, and then like redo this whole sentence so that it actually has some bearing on the material world that we live in. A religion of 1.9 billion is picking on a religion of 15 million, and you are the victims. How about a settler colony that has been ethnically cleansing the land of Palestine for over 100 years at this point, which formed a minority, okay? The Zionist settlers were the minority who were picking on the indigenous majority, and I'm sorry, the colonizers are the victims? The colonizing minority, ethnically cleansing the indigenous majority, stealing their land, backed up by what Vladimir Jabotinsky, one of the earliest Zionist leaders, called the Iron Wall of the British Empire. And the Zionists are supposed to be the victims? The settlers are the victims? I'm just trying to understand here. The Native Americans were the indigenous majority, but they were just picking on patriotic American settlers. Completely ahistorical what she's doing. One of those, like, I'm just going to talk about religious ideology, and I'm not going to pay any mind to the actual history, the recent modern history of that region of the world. And I'm thinking of the British Empire, you know. We're not even going to talk about the Balfour Declaration, the British Mandate of Palestine. None of that matters. It's just a religion of 1.9 billion is picking on a religion of 15 million, you know? I'm sorry, a settler colony is picking on a concentration camp, and the settler colony is the victim? I'm sorry, there are two social groups in question here. One with human rights and one, being deprived of human rights by the group that has the human rights. And the group that has the human rights is the victim? The colonial aggressors are the victims? Don't forget, okay? I'm not even Israeli or Jewish, but don't forget, okay? I just sign on to all of it. Don't forget that I'm also the victim. It's like there's the slaves and the slave owners. And the slaves are revolting, and what? It's the slave owners that are the victims? Make it make sense.
To Islam. And ever since then, they have done nothing but try and wipe the Jewish people off the face of the planet and out of their ancestral homeland.
So ancestral? She's even making up words. Can't even see straight. She's so blind with rage for brown people that she's like, I'm going to make up words of my own. Ancestral homeland. Well, that is big if true, Becca, or Elise, excuse me. But yeah, the whole ancestral land bit, I mean, that's just completely, again, this is what I always say, typical Zionists try not to invoke biblical times to justify an ethnic cleansing, challenge impossible. Like Noam Chomsky said, biblical rights have no status in the world today. No one can claim that this is my ancestral story, my narrative for where my people come from, and therefore I have a right to claim this land from these people. Therefore, Am Yisrael Chai, get the away, it's my land. It'd be like saying, the Scientologists all concur that 4 trillion years ago, aliens came down in spaceships and in human form and whatever their biblical style origin story is. And, we all agree that Uganda is for Scientologists. That was our ancestral homeland. Okay, cool. Where's your evidence? We don't have any. We have the miracle book to tell us. Okay, so, all right, well, yeah, go ahead. Here's the weapons. Go ahead and murder all these children, please. Thank you. This is the world's least genocidal Zionist right here. Said is still baffled by people not reading history of Andalusia and Baghdad and how Muslim and Jews with names and books authored by both coexisted for millennia. Yeah, it just so happens when you do colonization, it's like, it tends to turn violent, Before Palestine was being colonized, surprisingly, people got along pretty well. It was only when you started forcing them from their homes that turned into a war, like they say. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm not a historical scholar, but I don't need to be. Nobody needs to understand biblical times and the story of David or whatever to be okay to sign on to this. I mean, it's just indefensible. You have to go exactly 3,000 years ago if you want to believe the Israeli chodes. Don't go back 4,000 years ago. Don't go back, God forbid you go back 80 years ago. So it's just a silly argument to make. It's not even an argument. You had to cook your dad on this subject. No Jews and Muslims in Palestine have not been fighting for thousands of years. That's just a cope. And even if it's true, I mean, we're talking about the Israeli project. We're talking about a settler colony. I mean, you try to find other historical analogs, and what comes to mind is the Jews and the Nazis, slaves and slave owners, South Africa, the Bantustans. They've created an apartheid state. This is international law we're talking about. The highest court in all the land that's specifically designed to handle these types of conflicts has weighed in on the matter. Why don't we consult them? Why is everyone just so, what's the word? It's like we got this isolationist, like, imperial brain rot in the West, where it's like, oh, we don't even talk about, we're like Ben Shapiro, like, who gives a shit about the World Court? Who gives a about the Geneva Conventions? It's absolutely absurd. It's like you're telling on yourself. You're just a imperial cuck. You're so rabidly ignorant. You're just completely divorced from the entire international community. What a privilege take, right? To be in the West and just saying, man, we got it good. We can just thwart international law and we can veto UN resolutions. Who gives a shit? No, we control the world, so it doesn't matter. Might makes right at the end of the day. That's all it boils down to, I feel like. And then so when you have that colonial brain rot, you start saying like this person.
No one would care about Jerusalem if the Jewish people had not made it the Holy Land. If Jerusalem...
I mean, what do we say to that? No one would care about Jerusalem. You guys only care about the Palestinians because Jews put Jerusalem on the map, all right? Again, we should all understand everything that she's saying is completely irrelevant. This is completely... But you know what? You'd think that, like, okay, if you got before the United Nations, or if you got in front of the ICJ, certainly the Israelis would be more refined and have a little bit more of a practical explanation to justify their existence in the land of Palestine. No. This is the exact type of shit that Gilad Erdogan would say at the UN Council. It never gets any more thought out than this right here. I love that she's deriding TikTok while also contributing to the TikTok brain rot. She's like, I got off of TikTok and I read all these books, and that's when I realized that Am Yisrael Chai and Israel has a right, and now I'm getting back onto TikTok to be the very thing that I was just admonishing.
Was not the land in which the 3 Abrahamic religions derived from. No one would care about the land. It would be just as valuable as any other land in any part of the world that was the size of New Jersey. It would have no additional...
I'm so sorry, Elise, but you can't murder brown children and women with impunity, okay? I know that that's like your favorite thing. Look at this. What in the white woman nonsense? Beautiful.
Value. if the Jewish people had not made it the Holy Land. But because it is the Holy Land, the religions
It's the Holy Land, Sky Daddy said so, Em Yisrael Try.
who popped up after Judaism, like Christianity and Islam, who both derive from Judaism, would not then try to take over that land. You see, the Christians already tried to do it. They gave up, they made their peace with it, and they are now great allies. Islam is the newest religion of the three Abrahamic religions. It's the baby
We were here first.
religion, as we'll call it. So you see, they haven't quite figured it out.
Wait, so you are tied to the ancestral lands genetically. Okay, so maybe you'd feel comfortable taking a DNA test to confirm that? Heavens no.
They haven't quite figured out that there have been plenty of empires who have come along and tried to extinct the Jewish people, yet the Jewish people are still here. Maybe one day they'll figure it out and they'll learn how to...
It's not Jewish people, it's Zionists. It's settler colonialism. These things are wrong. Anytime you ethnically cleanse another ethnic group based on your ideological supremacy, whatever characteristics that might be, it's always wrong.
as other Arab nations have done. But in the meantime, it's important that we share the truth and tell the truth and not prop up and support religious death cults.
Yeah, that's why I'm firmly against the Zionist state of Israel. The last thing that she said, I completely agree with. We should not prop up religious death cults. That's why we say death to Israel, because it's a religious death cult. Look at this last video, got 34 views. Oh no, are you telling on yourself? Wait, are you saying, oh my god, God forbid these little Israeli chodes face some consequences for their actions. God forbid they get a taste of their own medicine. Now they're fleeing, oh my goodness. Let me go drum up some fucking crocodile tears for these losers. Oh no, they're fleeing over fear of violence, you guys. This is heartbreaking, really. Diaper down, diaper down. Oh, but they can run. They all still have their limbs. All those kids have their limbs and they're alive and still breathing. Wow, what a privilege. Yeah, well, you know, you want to feel sad for those kids who are running because of an air raid alarm. Blame their prime minister and his psychopathic criminal cabinet of warmongering racist supremacists. Okay, I don't know. How did I do?
Nixon ordered Cambodian genocide. Clinton sent cruise missiles to Sudan, people died. Gave the orders to do drones.